Good morning, everyone. I am Dhanashree Gavankar. On behalf of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, West India Council, and U.S. Consulate General Mumbai, I am pleased to extend a very warm welcome to all the esteemed dignitaries, respected guests of honor, and delegates for joining us today for the grand finale of Climate Change Series, Accelerating Climate Action in the MSME Sector. The presence of everyone inspired the heavy rains in Mumbai itself marks the significance of this program. We are honored to have with us today Ms. Patricia A. Lassina, Charge d'Affaires at U.S. Embassy, India, Mr. Pradeep Shah, Chairman, P. Pfizer, India, Mr. Adi Godrej, Chairman, Godrej Group, for being present with us. Thank you for gracing this program. In keeping with the Indian tradition, the inauguration will be done by lighting of the auspicious lamp. I request Ms. Patricia Lassina, Charge d'Affaires at U.S. Embassy, Mr. Pradeep Shah, Chairman, P. Pfizer, India, Mr. Adi Godrej, Chairman, Godrej Group, Ms. Radhika Dudat, Mr. Navneet Vibhav, a Regional President Saurav Shah, and Mr. Prashant Krishnan to kindly come forward and do the honors, please. The lamp is luminous, its radiance glance glory. Its lights impart dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. That is prosperity, righteousness, pleasure, and finally emancipation. This is the significance of lighting a lamp, and hence a lamp should be lit. Ladies and gentlemen, it was indeed an auspicious start. And time now to commence the program. I now invite Mr. Saurav Shah, President IACC West India Council and Chairman Ease of Doing Business, to kindly formally welcome you all.
Thank you, Dhanashree. Good morning, namaste, greetings to everyone present here. A very warm welcome to all of you for being here with us this morning. Indeed, you feel so great to return to normalcy and have programs in person as we used to have earlier. Friends, we are today indeed overwhelmed by the response and the enthusiasm of one and all. I would call today's day as a momentous day because we have gathered today to mark a successful completion of a journey to 6 cities which Indo-American Chamber undertook in close collaboration with the US Consulate Office, Mumbai, and our knowledge partner, Shardula Merchant Mangaldas. Thank you. The objective of this journey to 6 cities was to receive inputs from the CEOs and CXOs of MSMEs based in these geographies on climate change. What are the challenges? What is the future roadmap? Both, we have heard them at micro as well as macro level. These discussions have been captured in the form of a white paper for each of the city that visited. And today is the day when Indo-American Chamber, in collaboration with the US Consulate and Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas as our knowledge partner, will be launching the consolidated white paper, which will be a roadmap on climate action, MSME adaptation. Let me also mention here, we are not going to only release a white paper, but as a chamber, we will create core groups, steering committees, which will engage with the state agencies, both at the state level as well as we will engage with the federal agencies to see that we are able to explain what this white paper means in terms of suggestive remedies, measures, and tangible result that it can bring. Having said this, we are honored to have with us today Ms. Patricia Lessina Sharjee at US Embassy in India. Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. David Rance, Consulate General of United States of America in Mumbai. Mr. Scott Ticknor, Deputy Principal Officer at US Consulate General Mumbai. Mr. Pradeep Shah, Chairman, Pfizer India. Mr. Adi Godrej, Chairman of Godrej Group. Our heartfelt thanks to you all for gracing this program with your presence. It is indeed an honor and privilege to have you amongst us. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to recognize the gracious presence of our senior dignitaries from the corporate sector and from the ISSC leadership. I'm happy to mention we have with us Mr. Nani Kripani, past regional president, IACC, and past president of IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti, chairman Blue Star, past president of IMC and a veteran chartered accountant. Mr. Pramod Shah, former chairman of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. My colleague, Mr. Samir Patel, vice president IACC and members of the West India Council. Mr. Naushad Panjwani, past regional president, West India Council. Thank you so much. It means a lot to us in terms of your presence and your guidance. Very briefly, if I may share about our chamber, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce has a legacy of more than 50 years. It's a bilateral chamber focused on enhancing Indo-US trade and investment. Friends, IACC has taken up multiple initiatives, both at micro level, at macro level, in collaboration with the US Consulate and with various other agencies in Mumbai and in India, to see how we can contribute to enhance the business and trade between India and United States of America. We have around 13 MOU partners in the US with whom we collaborate to see that we are able to bring more traction as we move in our journey of enhancing the trade and investment. Now I would like to give you an overview of the roundtable deliberation series that was undertaken in the 6 cities. Before I speak about it, I'll request the technical team to show a few glimpses, and I'm sure that will convey the message better than my speaking on this subject. Sorry. Let me share with you very briefly the format that we adopted in each of the such cities. We identified the sector based on the geography. We invited 20 to 25 CEOs and CXOs of MSMEs operating in this particular sector. Let me mention, we had adequate and very significant representation from the women entrepreneurs also as a part of the roundtable deliberation. We had government representatives from the respective city who were very receptive on the suggestions made. They also shared what they are planning to do at the city level, and at the same time, they noted what the CEOs and CXO mentioned. We had our knowledge partner from Shardula Merchant Mangaldas, Ms. Radhika and Mr. Navneet and their team throughout in the 6 cities. And of course, we had representatives from the US consulate. So this was the entire team that went around the 6 cities. Knowledge paper has been prepared based on the discussion for each city, and then this has been converted into a consolidated action plan, which we'll be launching as we proceed with our program today. Each observation in the knowledge paper is crystallized into 3 parts. One is the challenge, the suggestive solution, the remedy, and what would be the tangible, quantified impact if this is implemented. So this is, friends, all about our journey of roundtable deliberation, and I must thank everyone on behalf of the Chamber for the support, guidance, mentorship that we received to make this a great success. And of course, thanks once again to all of you to witness this today and for being a part of this event today. Our national president, Mr. Kapil Kaul, due to some unavoidable reason, he is not able to join us today, but he has shared his video message. So I would request the tech team to kindly play the video message.
Good morning, everybody. I thank everyone for coming for this prestigious event, especially given the fact that it's to do with climate change, which is the key feature of my presidential term. Thank you to Her Excellency Ms. Patricia Lechenia, the Charge d'Affaires at the US Embassy in Delhi. Thank you for coming all the way from Delhi to attend this event. The Consul General, Mr. David Rance, Mr. Pradeep Shah, Chairman Pfizer India, Mr. Adi Godrej, and other eminent industrialists and dignitaries present. I congratulate the US Consulate, Mumbai, and my colleagues at Indo-American Chamber Western Region. My colleague, the Regional President, Mr. Saurabh Shah, Vishnu, Dhanashri, for conducting these series along with the US Consulate so well and bringing about an awareness about climate matters. India and US are natural allies, and we have been together irrespective of any differences that we may have had as democracies. But we have had very good understanding and partnership when it came to the YTK in 2000, the GFC in 2008, and recently COVID. I foresee that in the coming decades and more, the environment will be the issue which will bring our two nations closer together, especially in business and trade, because post-pandemic, there is and will be a sea change in the way we conduct our business, the technologies that will be adopted, and the products that will be changed. Some of you would have already heard about my formula, which is E3, and which is there in the logo which I had designed and which would be there on next to our Indo-American Chamber logo, which is conservation of energy, conservation of the ecology, and conservation of the environment. By conserving these and not exploiting them, we would need to achieve this by controlling 3 Cs. And the 3 Cs are crude oil, corruption, and above all, consumerism. Our mass consumerism, which we are doing right now, is wasteful. All these are actually wasteful practices, and we need to eliminate one W, and which is waste of all kinds. Waste of time, waste of resources, waste of packaging. We know that packaging is a huge pollutant, and crude oil and its derivatives are one of the biggest scourges of this planet, which we need to get rid of. We all think that we are owners of this planet. However, the COVID pandemic has shown that Mother Nature has given the rap on our knuckles and told us that we are only mere tenants of this planet, and she is the owner, and she can get rid of us whenever she wants, like she has earlier civilizations. Accordingly, I urge that all of us be very, very cautious of the way we consume, the way we produce, the kind of technologies that we use. And towards this end, I think India and US can be ideal partners like yin and yang, where America is the research and hardware, and India is the software and applications. We have two big markets. America has a big market, India has a big market, and we should make the leap of faith between our two countries and bring about a closer relation and a more prosperous tomorrow, and not just prosperous, but an environmentally safe tomorrow. With this, I thank you all once again, and my apologies for not being present today for this prestigious event, which I very much wanted to do. However, I am not there. And I wish to, I hope that all of you do have a good day and a good event, and thank you very much once again.
We are indeed grateful to our National President, Kapil Kaul. And I would also like to recognize and thank Prashant Krishnan, who's come all the way from Pune and who's the Vice President of the West India Council of IICC. Thank you, Prashant, for being here with us this morning. And with this, I'll invite Dhanashree to take the proceedings forward. Thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shah, for giving an overview on the Six City Drive. I also thank Mr. Kapil Kaul for his kind and encouraging words. And we truly seek his blessings as we move ahead with the proceedings of today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I invite our esteemed dignitaries and guests of honor to kindly take the seats on the dais. Mr. Saurav Shah, Regional President, IICC West India Council. Ms. Patricia Lassina, Charge d'Affaires, US Embassy. Mr. Pradeep Shah, Chairman, P. Pfizer. Mr. Adi Godrej, Chairman, Godrej Group. Ms. Radhika Dudat, Partner, Shardula Merchant Mangaldas and Company. Mr. Navneet Vibhav, Partner, Shardula Merchant Mangaldas and Company. Mr. Prashant Krishnan, IICC West India Council Vice President. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank our program partners, CIS Bureaus Facility Services Private Limited, Ascent Overseas Education, TrackWiz, ICICI Bank for extending their gracious support in organizing this event. Now it's my honor to introduce you all to Ms. Patricia Lacina, Charge d'Affaires at US Embassy, India. Ms. Patricia Lacina assumed the role of Charge d'Affaires in September 2021. Her prior roles include Consul General at the US Consulate in Frankfurt, Principal Deputy Executive Secretary in the Office of Secretary of State, and Chief Knowledge Officer. Her overseas assignments include posts in Cairo, Vienna, Brussels, Buenos Aires, Nairobi, Moscow, Bogota, and Mexico City. Patricia holds a BA in Special Education and Spanish from the University of Northern Iowa, and an MA in International from California State University at Sacramento. Madam Lacina, may I request you to kindly come forward to share your views?
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. The sad thing is, as she reads all those places I've been, I realize that just makes me old, nothing else. So thank you for the invitation to be here today, and good morning. It's just such a privilege to share a room with all of you august business folks, and just such distinguished members of the business community in Mumbai. I'm glad to see the room is full. And thank you, Saurabh, and thanks to IACC for organizing this 6-part series on climate change mitigation with a focus on MSMEs. I'm so pleased to hear that the discussions revealed new areas where businesses and local governments can collaborate to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build resilience against the effects of climate change. I'd also like to thank Radhika and Navneet from Shardul Umurchand Mulgadas, who have been the knowledge partners throughout this series. That's such a critical role. I look forward to hearing the observations and recommendations contained in the white paper and how we can work together to tackle the issue of climate change. Now, I don't know about you guys, I'm going off script here, but my daughter's 25, and she lives in New York, and she is obsessed with what is going to happen to the world. So, how many of you have kids? Right? Okay. So, I can't emphasize enough how important this issue is, and how glad I am that we have these kind of partnerships that we can really look at it. And let's face it, the crisis is already here. We don't have to wait for it, it's here. And we must confront it today. And as we do, we should see it as an economic opportunity that can create good-paying jobs and spur economic and industrial growth. The U.S. is committed to doing our part. At COP26 last November, the United States reached an agreement with more than 100 countries that contain 85% of the world's forests to stop deforestation by 2030. We released our long-term strategy outlining how we'll get to a net zero economy by 2050. We developed the U.S. Methane Emissions Reduction Action Plan, which included robust new rules to reduce emissions, cut consumer costs, and support job growth. And we established the President's Emergency Plan for Adaptation and Resilience to support climate adaptation efforts for more than 500 million people worldwide. The U.S. committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050, while India committed to achieving the same by 2070. The United States welcomes the opportunity to work with India in achieving its COP26 announced target of generating 500 gigawatts of non-fossil energy by 2030. This is electricity to fuel the power sector, agriculture, heavy industry, as well as medium and small enterprises that provide so much employment. We applaud the Indian government's ambitious renewables goals, and U.S. innovation offers expansive clean energy technologies, products, and services that can assist India in meeting them. To do so, we must encourage the development of newer and more affordable energy options. And that's where you come in. These announcements and goals are tailor-made for ambitious and forward-thinking businesses, multinational corporations, and MSMEs alike, to turn the vision into profitable and realistic opportunities. U.S. and Indian companies can lead the way through collaboration and by capitalizing on our long and successful bilateral partnership. As a sign of that commitment, last year we launched the U.S.-India Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue, CAFMED, to unlock the capital necessary to finance clean energy innovation and development. Now it's time to put these commitments into action as partners. Let me give a couple of examples of the partnership between our two countries, both at the state level and throughout India. The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, the FC, has committed over $1 billion for renewable projects around India. These include a $500 million loan to First Solar for a solar panel manufacturing facility and a risk-sharing guarantee agreement with New York-based Encourage Capital and two Indian financial companies, Seekers Financial and Electronica Finance Limited, that mobilizes $41.7 million in financing for Indian MSMEs investing in rooftop solar installations. And the DFC has an estimated $600 million of additional renewable energy projects in the pipeline. The public diplomacy team here in Mumbai convened Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times columnist Tom Friedman and managing director of Godrej and Boyce Manufacturing, Jamshid Godrej, to discuss how India can transition to a net zero emissions economy with renewable energy. A common finding in all our efforts to address the climate crisis is the key role public-private partnerships must play to achieve our goals. Another finding is that while decisive action by national governments and large energy firms is necessary, it is not sufficient. Particularly in India, where, according to the Confederation of Indian Industry, MSMEs account for a third of national manufacturing output and contribute to roughly 45% of overall exports. MSMEs must be part of the plan in order to reach its climate targets. This is why the white paper being launched today and the countless individual actions by every micro, small, and medium-sized business to reduce energy consumption or to install solar panels on their rooftops are so important. Thank you for having me here today, and congratulations to everyone who has contributed to this project.
Thank you, Madam Lasina, for your invigorating remarks. It's indeed a pleasure to have you amidst us. Now I invite on dais Mr. Navneet Vibhav, partner Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas and Company, to share his presentation on climate change, global and Indian perspective. Mr. Vibhav, over to you.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone, and it's a real pleasure and an honor to be here this morning and amongst such distinguished guests. So, I think my job is pretty much very easy because everyone who's present in this room is well versed with what's climate change all about and what is it that we are actually facing when it comes to the global community and especially India. And so as a part of course, my partner Radhika will be. No, I think, so the request of course is that if they can sit there and watch the slides, but I think you're just fine. So. The idea simply is, and why I say this is because the white paper that we've actually circulated pretty much has everything that I'm going to talk about. So my assignment for this morning is just to set the tone for this conversation. And my partner Radhika will be talking about what we did in the 6 cities that we had these conversations at, and what really has been the outcome. So I pretty much wanted to do the elementary job of talking about what climate change is all about and what in India we really are doing in terms of the law and policy, what is happening on the international front, something most of you are already aware of. And since we have Your Excellency here, also, kind of re-emphasizing on the ways in which I think we could collaborate. Because I always say that, in fact, when I was sitting here, I was just wondering that, about 14 years back when I was a student studying environment, energy, and climate change in the US, so I studied in Portland, Oregon at Lewis and Clark. And since you also come from the West Coast, and I think the reason I found it very ironical was because, even then in the classroom, I was being taught the same stuff, which I'm still talking about, and when I go to deliver lectures, I still talk about those very things. So the unfortunate part is that not much has happened in these last 12, 13, 14 years, and that's a real pity. But having said that, I think being the optimist that we all are, I think there's a lot of I think awareness. There's a lot of interest, and people have really realized that this is the way forward. So, and I think this becomes extremely important in the context of MSMEs, because the larger industries, and as lawyers working for tier one firms, I think we frequently work with the larger enterprises and companies, and I think the level of sophistication, the level of awareness is quite high. So that's not what we're really talking about here. I think the real challenge is getting, I think the figures we just mentioned, the 45% of, the people who actually don't really have the resources, don't really have the technical know-how, don't really, I mean, even when they really realize what is to be done, they have real challenges in terms of ensuring that the manner in which it is to be done. And I think that's where our role as, maybe IACC and the knowledge partner, and of course, our friends becomes extremely important, because that's where you really need to kind of I would say push through and support people who really need. So having said that, I think I'm going to very briefly talk about what climate change is all about, what is it that's there in the Indian laws, what is happening on the international front, something you all are aware of. So climate change, of course, because we've always had this conversation where people have actually doubted what climate change was all about, and they just said that it's just a cycle and it happens all the time. But for someone like me who has just flown in this morning from Delhi for this event, and if you live in Delhi, and if in the month of April or whatever, May, you have 48 degrees centigrade, then I think that's something which is clearly abnormal. And I think, I have an 8-year-old daughter, because I think someone just asked how many of you have kids here, and I just thought that, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I keep telling her that, beta, you should be used to this kind of heat, because by the time you grow up, I think 60 degrees centigrade would be normal, and you'd be walking around wearing these suits and stuff. So I hope that never happens. But I think one of the things we've all realized is this is something which is a real threat for our survival, and it's no longer a question of profit maximization or the whole politics and stuff like that. I think this is a question of our survival, and the sooner we kind of act on it, the better it is for all of us. So having said that, I think we're all aware that, when you talk about climate change adaptation, mitigation, we know the causes, of course, fossil fuels and stuff. You have, and one of the things we also figured out is the level of awareness is quite high. If you actually go even to the tier 2 cities and talk to people about what climate change is all about, what the causes are, what is it to be done, it's not that people don't know what is to be done. I think the challenge really is, they don't really have the wherewithal to kind of ensure that it is done, and it's done properly in a timely manner. And that is where I think we need to kind of support such initiatives. So yeah, I mean, I just thought I'll just put in some like thermal energy generation, industrial emissions, vehicular pollution. These are all causes, which actually contribute to greenhouse gas emissions, something we all know. So one of the things which, when we're talking about MSMEs, I think the real challenge is treating your emissions, effluents, and all of that. And that's where there is a real need for technology. And one of the things I've also been doing as a part of the US consulate's initiative is there's a lot of interaction these days with companies, and I have, for the last 2-3 days, I've been interacting with a lot of companies who are actually into, clean air technology in the US. And, and they've all, so one of the things I've realized is, the technology really exists. And a lot of companies I actually spoke to, they have the technology. They know that India is a great country where, when I say great opportunity, because it's a great market, they really want to come here, and I think we're just trying to figure out ways of how to do that. And I think that's where the real challenge is, because you have companies which have the best technologies when it comes to air purification and stuff, and this is something which we really need. So that's just an example, because I was interacting with these companies, and I thought that this is where I think maybe IACC and all of us should come together and ensure that you have a clear, maybe some kind of a forum which actually brings together people who have that kind of technology and people who need that technology, especially in countries like India. And I think that's where, and I think the consulate is actually doing a fantastic job of connecting Indian companies and US companies which have such technological know-how. So having said that, I think very briefly I'll just run through. So we have a lot of stuff happening when it comes to climate change. We're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. We're talking about the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. I think for quite some time we've been harping on the 1.5 degrees centigrade, and now we've actually kind of resigned to the fate and said that, okay, even if it's 2 degrees centigrade, I think it's all fine. But I think that really doesn't serve the purpose, because what we actually wanted, we've not been able to achieve over maybe more than a decade or so. So net zero, of course, like Your Excellency mentioned that, there's something, of course, we've committed. So something which, of course, the US is doing much earlier. We're doing it slightly later, maybe a few decades later. But I think the good part is we've actually kind of committed to something, and we are clearly taking serious action to support that. And I think for a country like India, where we have some real challenges, I think it's a good beginning. That's how I see it. So a lot of people may say that, I think we should be doing more than what we've actually kind of committed to, but it's a time-taking process, and I think it's a good beginning. So let's see what. So one of the things which I think also has been a very, very positive development in the Indian context, especially, is the whole conversation around ESG. And I know, as a matter of fact, that be it in the US, Europe, and other jurisdictions, there has been a lot of conversation about environment, social, and governance issues for quite some time. But the good part is that now our regulator, SEBI, has actually made it mandatory, and the top 1,000 companies by way of market capital, as most of you would know, are already kind of getting their house in order. They have actually realized, and most of them have always been doing that. I mean, even before we had the BRSR format in India, I think a lot of them actually were aware of what's happening internationally, and they were actually kind of, picking up the standards that they want to and the benchmarks, and they've actually been doing a fantastic job. The real challenge is not these top 1,000 companies, but when it comes to the MSMEs. Because of, and since this whole conversation has been there for a few years, one of the questions I always face from clients, and these are like, the medium and also some small enterprises, we've already been complying with the regulatory framework. I mean, we've always been complying with the laws. So what difference does BRSR make? And are we really obligated to kind of, maybe do more than what the law actually requires us to do? So that's something, I think that's where I think this conversation is important, because then, there's a clear advantage as to if you're one of those compliant companies, and if you actually do more than what is really required of you, I think the benefits are immense, not just in terms of funding and stuff, but also for your own organization and for the country and the society that you operate in. So that's something, of course, and so very briefly, laws and policies. So one of the things, as part of this conversation, we've always had this suggestion that, why not have a specific national level body which talks about climate change, which pushes for climate change policy and all of that. Now, the challenge, of course, as some of you appreciate, is that, we're a country where, with due respect, we're very fond of creating these institutions and organizations, but what really is achieved out of this is something, we really don't kind of assess. So I think the challenge, the suggestion really shouldn't be in terms of creating a specific climate change body. The idea is we really have the laws in place. We have a ministry, we have the Central Pollution Control Board, we have the State Pollution Control Boards, we know what is required to be done. And if you look at these laws, the reason I've listed some of these laws is because all of these laws, They basically have certain standards when it comes to emissions. They have standards when it comes to effluents. They have standards when it comes to, forest conservation. And all of these, if you take into consideration, the idea simply is they are for the betterment of the environment. They are for climate change adaptation and mitigation. So let's take a few examples. Now, if you're talking about forest conservation, we've always had this compensatory afforestation fund. And I know, as a matter of fact, as someone who practices before, the Supreme Court, and I shouldn't be saying this before this forum, we've had instances where a Supreme Court judge is pulling up the representative of a particular state because the money which was actually collected for compensatory afforestation was actually utilized for distributing free bicycles and laptops in that particular state. So that's where I think you have a real challenge, because I think you need to really prioritize as to, if you have a certain purpose for which a certain fund has been collected, you might as well use it for that. And I think again, and I'm being very candid. I mean, it kind of reflects us in poor light, but I think you have to have these kind of conversations, and then you need to question certain things, because the manner in which, the funds are being utilized, it's kind of unfortunate. So of course, you have to have a Supreme Court come and reprimand a state representative to kind of ensure that, you use the compensatory afforestation fund for afforestation and nothing else. So why I'm saying this is, again, we've had all the laws in place. The challenge really is kind of implementation. The challenge really is the level of awareness that is required. And I would say the willingness, because the unfortunate bit is, if you talk to any of these representatives from the MSMEs, and this has also come in the conversation that we've had, and my colleague would be elaborating on that, is of course funds, technological know-how, and of course, proper training. And that's something which is where I think, our partners can really contribute, because I know, as a matter of fact, that, be it US, be it Europe, they have excellent examples of, the best practices which we can kind of imbibe and inculcate. So, and having said that, I think I just wanted to list some of the initiatives that, we are kind of taking. So you have the National Action Plan on Climate Change, and we had these missions under that. The FAME 2 has been a success, I would say, because so FAME, of course, stands for the faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles. And I think there's a lot of work that is actually being done, and that's a very, very positive development. We have, these National Clean Energy and Environment Fund, National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change. So there is a fair bit of action when it comes to climate change adaptation and mitigation. We are emphasizing a lot on these energy efficient buildings. So we have a specific code for that. The India Cooling Action Plan of 2019 has been a real success. We have the National Clean Air Program also. And of course, there's a lot of push on green hydrogen and alternative fuels like ethanol, something we're all aware of. So, and there's a fair bit which we've mentioned in the white paper, and so that's something which I would request you all to read. So I think to say that, maybe we've arrived at the party late, but we're clearly doing our bit, and we are quite serious about it. And I think one of the things which I think Mr. Shah also mentioned, that after we have this white paper, we are going to do is we're going to the regulators, we're going to the ministry, and we're going to hand a copy to them and say that, you know what, we've had this conversation, these are the points which we would actually want to be addressed. So that's something we're going to do. And so like ma'am very rightly mentioned that, there are a fair bit of opportunities when it comes to collaboration and technology, like I mentioned, when it comes to air quality, electric mobility, circular economy, because in the budget also there was a fair bit of emphasis on circular economy and how we need to kind of recycle and reuse our waste. And that's where I think there's a great opportunity for people to come in and bring in the international best practices. Sustainable financing, and that has come in again and again during our conversations, across 6 cities, and maybe my colleague will be elaborating on that. We're talking about all kinds of innovative instruments, including green bonds and stuff. Carbon trading, I know as a lawyer back in 2011-12, when I used to practice, there was a whole lot of buzz around carbon trading and stuff, and somewhere it died down. So I think that's a great model to revive, and I think that will do us a lot of good. Skill development, like I always say, and I say this again with a lot of sense of responsibility. So I happen to interact with the representatives of the pollution control boards and maybe deliver lectures to them. And one of the things I've realized is we need to actually train our regulators better. Because and not just, I always say this, that you not just in terms of the training, also pay them well, make sure that they are well trained, they are kind of they have the best technological know-how, they have the best level of awareness, because one of the challenges we face for a country of this size and scale is, the training of the regulators, because when you have these people who are going to these sites to inspect, many a times, with due respect to them, they have certain challenges. So I feel it's also very important for us to kind of train our regulators and their officials better. And that's where I think we can have, maybe some representative from the US EPA come and kind of, interact with the CPCB. And I think the possibilities are immense, not just in terms of the financing bit, but also in terms of the technological, know-how and the skill development. So, and of course, like I said, that, we shouldn't be creating multiple institutions and forums, but I think there is a real need to have some kind of center of excellence, maybe with minimal involvement of the government, where, you kind of have companies from the US and India coming together only for discussing, issues with respect to climate change. So I'll leave it at that. And of course, I had a few slides to talk about who we are and what we do. So as lawyers, of course, we are a full-service firm, and we, apart from other practices, we also have a full-fledged environment, energy, and climate change practice, and ESG and stuff like that. We're spread across 7 cities in this country, and we're a law firm of about 800 lawyers. So yeah, and some accolades for self-promotion. So I'll leave it at that, and then, yeah, I think I'll hand it over to the anchor for this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Navneet, for setting the tone and giving a perspective, Indian and global perspective on climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now that we hear directly from the industry leaders and experts. So allow me to introduce you all to Mr. Pradeep Shah, Chairman, Pfizer India. Mr. Shah, being the chairman of Pfizer India, he has served as a chairman of IFSC, International Retail Business Development Committee, member of Gujarat Committee on Economic Revival Post-COVID. He was appointed by Government of India on the Justice Eswar Committee for simplifying the Income Tax Act. He has served on the Bank's Board Bureau and on several expert committees of state and central government. He has been a director of Regional Board of Reserve Bank of India, and the list goes on. Mr. Shah, I request you to kindly address the August gathering.
Thank you very much. I will be speaking on environment, social, and governance issues. So, Your Excellency, wonderful to see you and meet you, as also all the dignitaries on the dais. Mr. Vibhav, your speech was wonderful. Mr. Godrej, Mr. Saurav Shah, Ms. Praduat, and of course, Mr. Krishnan, and all the friends here. Thank you very much. I will first just bring attention to a survey done by Price Waterhouse under their Consumer Intelligence Series survey in 2021, very recent, where they found that 83% of consumers think that companies should be actively shaping ESG practices. And 76% of consumers said that they would discontinue their relationship with companies that treat the environment, employees, or the community poorly. In the same survey, 86% of employees said that they prefer to support or work for companies that care about the same issues. So not only are consumers and employees requiring companies to play a bigger role in accelerating progress on ESG concerns, but so are investors. So as of December 2021, assets under management at global exchange-traded funds, only exchange-traded funds, which are of a sustainable nature, they have the sustainable objectives in their investment policy, totaled $2.7 trillion. This trend is going to increase dramatically. The flow already doubled from 2020 to 2021 into ESG funds. And then, of course, under a survey by paper by Broadridge Financial Solutions, predicts that ESG assets worldwide will go up to over $30 trillion from the current $8 trillion in the next 8 years. So 4 times in the next 8 years is the kind of amount that will go into sustainable funds, which will then drive companies to sustainability. So as this is a worldwide trend and it's likely to accelerate, it would be prudent for businesses large and small to take cognizance of it and prepare themselves for it. So my suggestion now that I will make is from a top level perspective, what top management can do about and how to address this ESG issue. It is no longer enough to set a distant goal, say 2050 we will have net zero emissions, which is what everyone is doing, governments are doing, but of course companies have been doing it. In 2019 there were 34 companies over $1 billion in turnover that had already announced it. And if you come now to 2020 to 22, 700 of the 2,000 largest publicly traded companies by revenue have such goals. So it is the bare minimum that the investors, the constituents of the companies expect. With greater awareness of climate change and companies are being pressed to provide interim emissions goals for no later than 2030, which is when scientists say that our emissions should be halved. So you have a company like Dr. Reddy's, you know, the Hyderabad company, which is listed on the stock exchanges and of course serves a global client base, announced its ESG goals very recently. Aspire to be carbon neutral in direct operations by 2030. Water positive by 2025. And at least 35% women in senior leadership positions by 2030. It is not only the risks from ESG trends, but as Your Excellency, you mentioned, there is an opportunity in those ESG trends also. So for instance, you have Tata Chemicals Europe, which has started carbon absorption from its power plant, and it will absorb 40,000 tons of carbon dioxide from its power plant emissions, which will be equivalent to taking 20,000 cars off the road. And it will save for Tata Chemicals 10% of its emissions. So Tata Chemicals will not only address an ESG goal, but also make money out of it. That is, it's come out with a soda bicarb, baking soda, called EcoCarb, which uses this carbon dioxide. And of course, this goal has been changed itself by some companies like Microsoft. Microsoft 2 years ago announced that it was going beyond net zero to be carbon negative by 2030, meaning it would remove more carbon than it emits. By 2050, it plans to have removed all the carbon it has produced, either directly or through electricity, since it was founded in 1975. Wow. Very few companies are going to this kind of length to talk about removal of historic carbon emissions from the atmosphere. However, numerous companies are planning to plant trees that absorb carbon and reduce carbon dioxide from the atmosphere in a way that offsets their carbon requirements, carbon emissions. So one of the multinationals, one of the largest companies in the world, has signed one of the largest tree planting contracts in the world with growtrees.com, a social enterprise that I have founded, for 36 million trees over the next 3 years. And Mr. Weber mentioned that in 14 years, he's not seen much progress, but frankly, on a micro level, we see a lot of progress. Whether when we plant trees for tigers, we see ST6 and ST10 coming into the territories where we planted the trees, because with the trees, the prey came, and with the prey came the predator. And so, and water catchment improvement. So water tables near Sariska have gone up to 40 feet from 300 feet level because we planted a few 100,000 trees over the last few years, and so on. There's lots of micro benefits that are coming from these trees. Spencer Stewart, the firm specializing in human resources, suggests that companies consider appointing a senior person responsible for identifying, mitigating, and seizing the risks and opportunities from climate change. There are, of course, suggestions for having a committee of the board also. So a recent survey, again, 2022 survey of S&P 100 companies, found that 93 companies, that's 93%, have one committee or the other that is overseeing ESG responsibilities. No company can do without this kind of addressing these ESG matters. Handing the job of shaping climate policies to the marketing department is no longer enough. You know, the marketing department will of course do a good job, but it's not enough to keep up with the regulatory requirements. Mr. Weber mentioned about how the regulators are getting into the act. And of course, it is this area is facing unprecedented regulatory scrutiny. So it has to be at the board level. So as a chairman or CEO or owner of a company, a simple suggestion is to have an agenda item, ESG, in every board meeting. So that the subject is on the radar for all managements. They have to report to the board that this is what we are doing on ESG. This will also allow for capturing the evolving regulatory stance as well as the best practices and the evolving practices in measuring, reporting, and ascertaining ESG issues. So here's my concrete suggestion for, as a CEO or a chairman or a board, what you should do. One, set goals with timelines for the company in terms of ESG on carbon emissions, water consumption, diversity in workforce, community outreach, and so on. This is necessary. Even a small company has to do it. Your customers will force you to do it if you don't do it yourself. So it's better you do it yourself and then go proactively to your customers and say, look, we are doing this already. Number two, boards must ensure that perhaps through the insist of an agenda, as I said, on ESG in each board meeting, that management has ESG on its radar all the time. It's interwoven in the strategies of the company. Then boards must check whether there is a measurement system in place for evaluating the company's actions on ESG. Then boards must take action from time to time towards incorporating best practices on ESG. And if not best practices, at least the practices that competitors are following. Otherwise, it is going to be a competitive disadvantage for companies if you don't keep up with the ESG practices. And then companies must have oversight over the company's ESG reporting, so as to both to regulators and shareholders, because that's what gives the positioning to the company. And of course, companies must be sensitive to feedback on the company's ESG actions and to regulatory and community expectations of the company on ESG matters. In the past, the ESG issue was not a priority, not at the board level, not for management, never. But no board of directors or CEO or business owner can continue business as in the past. If they wish to future-proof their business or to be, to be at least proactive and be relevant in the emerging awareness and emerging ESG practices and emerging consumer demands. So thank you very much. All the best to all of you here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shah, for sharing your remarks and valuable suggestions on accelerating climate action. Now I take the opportunity to introduce you all to Mr. Adi Godrej, Chairman of Godrej Group. Adi Godrej is one of the icons of Indian industry who needs no introduction. Today, Godrej Group enjoys the patronage of 1.1 billion consumers globally across consumer goods, real estate, appliances, agriculture, and many other businesses. Under Adi Godrej's leadership, the group is involved in philanthropic activities, and the group is held in trusts that invest in environment, health, and education. Godrej is also a major supporter of World Wildlife Fund in India and has developed a green business campus in Vikhroli township of Mumbai, which includes 150-acre mangrove forest and a school for the children of company employees. Sir, over to you, please. Sir, you may want to be seated and give your remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very glad this series has been organized to spread the importance of companies following these principles and have a pre-planned progress for success. I think we badly need that in India, among other countries. And I'm very glad that the IACC and the US consulate and US embassy are participating in this in a major way. These are very important points being brought out, and there's a lot of learning for all companies in following them and implementing them. We in our group have been involved in promoting these points considerably. We have a campus quite close by, which has, as mentioned, mangrove forests and schools and other institutions which promote these principles. And it works very well. I again thank you all for having participated in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for showing your support by being present here and amongst us. Now I request Ms. Radhika M. Dudat, partner Shardul Amarchal Mangadas and Company, to share highlights of roundtable deliberation across cities, along with brief summary on the white paper. Ms. Radhika?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Namaskar. For us, this has been a great experience and honor to have been associated with this wonderful 6-part series, out of which we were involved with 5 cities. I just wanted to give you a brief highlights of what we did and what we learned while we interacted. I must say that this experience has been most humbling, because as lawyers, of course, we have studied concepts, laws, policies, and as Navneet actually mentioned, even during my early study days, which was in 1994 when I was at the law school in Cambridge, I took a paper at the Kennedy School which was taught by a professor, William Clark, on sustainable development. And it pretty much outlined everything that was being said right now. I'd have to say that over a period of time, by compulsion of the state of environment that we face, we are required to take attention and wake up to the reality of where we are. This experience over the 6 cities has shown, given a broad overlook to a few things, which I'm going to narrate in 3 points, essentially. The first has been a realization that although there are a plethora of laws in India, and there are agencies which are very well structured, organized, doing what they have to do, the scale in India on account of population, on account of the issues that one faces, and also paucity of funds, particularly in the MSME sector, requires that often them to make certain compromises by way of cutting corners. And one of the great surprises actually, which was that the MSME sectors and the specific industrial sectors that we went across, I'll just give you a few examples. In Goa, we were with the tourism industry. With Nasik, it was the agro as well as specialty industries, IT and others. In Mumbai, it was the financial sectors, which were represented by various industry groups looking at green financing. In Indore, it was heavy metal industry, and in Ahmedabad, it was the chemical industry. So each of them were extremely well aware of, what are the steps that needed to be done. The key concern and what we found were the pain points that they really felt was one, to have a clear outreach on basis of the government agencies, which would set out the broad policies, standards, incentives that are available. Because a lot of the best practices that are required to be adapted are expensive. And today, while they do understand, the MSME sector certainly understands the necessity to do it, the why of it is very well understood. The how of it is really the big issue. And as a result, one of the concerns that they expressed everywhere, literally, is that they would like to see very clear outline of the guidelines of what are the policies that are there, which are simplified, what are agencies which are there not just to monitor them, but also help them out for their issues. The other point was in respect to consolidation of different solutions which are used. For example, where there are clusters, industry clusters which are existing in different industrial parks, be it say chemicals or clothing, depending on what the functionality is. What we found is wherever the industrial parks had made available facilities like for waste management or recycling of effluents, or even in certain cases common boiler facilities which we saw, it made a huge difference, including even solar energies. Because what they felt is if we could consolidate over clusters, it saves not only the resources, but also is extremely cost effective. And also there is a certain degree of standardization in terms of practices that can get followed, because you have to be plugged into the system. So the concept that, while it's extremely important to have this understanding, conserve assets, needless to say, waste management, as well as to have great sustainable practices, what has come out as a clear realization is sharing of resources, sharing of practices, and also to be able to have common facilities, because that to a large extent will bring out, take away a lot of stress that everyone faces, and we don't need to duplicate it, for every single industry. The other interesting example, or rather insight that we realized was, it is also very important to be able to find solutions which were industry specific. So the problems that are faced by industries are real, depending on different sectors, locations, specifications, and hence there would need to be specialized synergies not only between the regulator, governments, and the industry, but also the educational sector. And the reason is because the R&D that is required to be undertaken for the problems that are faced by the industries require concerted and concentrated effort to take on problem-solving mechanisms for specific problems with a time frame, agenda, and so on and so forth. The best part is, and this is something that we spoke about in Mumbai as well, that when such projects are taken, they can be made a part of the CSR budgets, that the companies have, because you can actually sponsor projects across the country, which are there in terms of purposes. So for example, if you were looking at say effluent treatment, or if you were looking at compactors or solid waste management and solution, or reduction by use of say bio-friendly bacterias where the mass of it is reduced, or collecting and plastic waste management and conversion into actually a resource for energy. All of these required to be essentially made and systematized into solutions which can be used and shared across. So the lessons have been many, and we have done our best to capture them and share them with you all in the white paper. And the white paper, because we were literally working till yesterday morning, it was compiling all of it. So although there may not be enough copies for everyone right now, we will make sure that it is emailed to to everyone, and it's also available on the IACC and the US Consulate website. I'd just like to end by saying that this experience has led us to, be committed to the cause in terms of all the industries and participants here, and to a lot of you that I see that we have interacted during those sessions. Although I had promised that I'll reach out to you because I have your cards, and we haven't done that. It was only because we were too busy just completing all of this while we were while we had our day job also. So, but we will be getting in touch with you, and you can rest assured we are committed, and we see it our duty as a firm to be not only a part of the knowledge part, but also policy and whatever way we can help all our communities. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with, we look forward to working with all of you all in the near future and really making a difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Radhika, for the remarks and for your dedication and commitment, yours and your team's commitment towards preparing the white paper. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the wait is over, and it's time now for the launch of the official launch of the white paper. I request a regional president, Mr. Saurav Shah, and Ms. Radhika Dudat to kindly come forward and do the honors. Mr. Navneet Vibhav. Thank you very much, everyone. We sincerely hope that the ideas and views shared during the interactions with industry leaders at each of these cities will sow its seeds for a sustained, continuous, and fruitful Indo-US collaborations in the sustainability space. With this, I now request Regional Vice President Mr. Prashant Krishnan to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. And a little bit of irony, what I guess is that we are all sitting in a 7-star hotel and extremely air-conditioned, which guzzles unbelievable energy. So I think next time, let's try and see how, let's try and do that. I mean,
And not have paper.
yeah, probably yes, not have paper too. So, and I've been given this task of proposing the vote of thanks. So I think it's like we've all sensitized everyone around, and in 7 cities, Saurabh and the entire team went around, and probably we gathered a lot of information. And of course, we had the privilege of having the consulate as well as Amarchand to help us out in kind of, forming a small document. So thank you, all of you. And we all call it as an historic occasion because of our partners being around, and we've been able to consolidate a lot of data. So the presence of dignitaries on the stage, despite the heavy rains in Mumbai, I think, thank you so much for coming all the way out here and being around. And we all are committed to this, so I should thank you all also, because it's a very committed this thing. So today, we leave a mark and conclude the 6-city drive. To summarize today's session, India and the US have a unique symbiotic relationship in the area of climate change and ESG, and are firmly committed working together in achieving their ambitious targets. And I guess everybody has spelled out the kind of targets we have. So wishing all of us all the best to achieve this at the fastest and probably create a clean environment around. And firstly, let me begin to thank the entire audience. As I said, despite all the rains and despite all of this thing, you all folks made it. Thank you so much. On the behalf of the entire IACC family and of course Shardul Amarchand, I would thank Shash the Affairs of the US Embassy, Miss Patricia, for joining and being here all the way from Delhi. So it kind of, tells us our commitment and their commitment towards bringing in a better climate and ensuring that we kind of, create a better environment to live in. And I would request our regional president, the young and dynamic Saurabh Shah, to kind of offer a green. We've got a green certificate to ensure that. So this is a green certificate. We are extremely thankful for our corporate guru, Adi Gojret sir, to be around, and I would request our Vice President Sameer Shah to kind of offer him the green certificate too. Thank you, Sameer. Sameer Patel is our Vice President, and he is from Gujarat, so thank you for coming all the way from Gujarat, from Ahmedabad, I should say. I would extend my gratitude to Pradeep Shah, sir, the chairman of Pfizer India, for his continuous and unstinted support and the guidance that he's extended. I would request Mr. Naushad Panjwani, our immediate past president, to come and offer him the green certificate too. And of course, Mr. Rans, he was around in Pune as well. And I am extremely floored with his kind of, commitment towards the climate change and his suggestions which we had in Pune, especially on the CNG front. Unbelievable, sir. We are working towards it. And I would request our mentor, Nanik sir, to extend the green certificate to Mr. Rans as well. And of course, we have Mr. Scott Ticknor around, and he has also been a motivation, and he has also been extremely involved in supporting all our activities, especially on the climate change. I would request our immediate past president, Rajesh Vazarkar from Pune, who has been driving, and he is MD of Hells, and I forgot his company's name. So apologies. So please extend him the green certificate as well. Thank you so much, Rajesh. I'm also thankful to Yon Nam. I guess I've kind of pronounced it properly. Public diplomacy affair from the embassy. And thank you so much for your continued support. I guess you were there almost all the cities you traveled with us. And extensively, you also helped us in collecting the data and, of course, encouraging everyone around. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And my heartfelt gratitude towards our knowledge partners, Amarchan, Shardul, Amarchan, Mangaldas and company for their extreme dedication. And in fact, we've all heard that till yesterday morning they were collecting the data and getting the data and ensuring that this white paper is there in place for us on time. So thank you both, Radhika as well as Navneet, for being with us all the time. And now I think I must thank all the associate partners. And of course, Amrita. Amrita has been with us all the while. I mean, she has been a wonderful help from the consulate, and it's all because of her that all of us have come together, and it's all because of her passion towards the climate changes that we have all been around. So Amrita, thank you so much for being with us. And I would now probably take a few seconds more to kind of, there are a lot of people around, I mean, in the background who've helped us to make this happen. And CISB Technologies, thank you, Mr. Pimple. Thank you so much. Ascent Overseas Education, thank you, Mr. Atul Nisar and Shailesh Shah for your unstinted support. TrackWiz, thank you, Sagar Tana, for your contribution and for making this. And our proud banking partners, we have ICICI Bank and Shailendra Singh for their generous contribution towards making a lot of things happen. With this session, I would like to invite the Consul General, Rans, and Scott Tickner, and Mr. Yoon on stage, have a picture together, all of us. Thank you so much. And thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us, and let's try and make this place a better place to live in. And let's consume less and be a little conservative on our consumption. Thank you so much.